If you love what we do, then please consider supporting CryptFail on Patreon. Your support helps us grow and to create more content more often. And now, on with the show.
The year is 1915, and the world is at war. Middle Europa was an empire already pulling itself to pieces, long before they made their grab for power that started it all. 8 states held tenuously together by their Kaiser, who seeks to return his nation to its former glory. The Western nations took notice. Led by the Kingdom of Lions, they opposed Middle Europa and their allies, leading to the Great War. Millions have met their deaths in the endless tide of mud and blood and bullets and toxic gas, but the war that chewed them up and spat out their bones shows no sign of slowing down. In the midst of this obvious devastation, a more subtle threat has also emerged. Slivers of creeping dread needle those with the ability to notice them. The world that is at war is changing in ways it shouldn't, ways it shouldn't be able to. Events are undone, overwritten, continuity is warping, and if nothing is done, reality itself could be at risk. As the struggle for power overlaps with the struggle to preserve reality, loyalty and duty may be called into question, pitted against serving the greater good or even just surviving. This is the world of Carbon Grey.
Apis mellifera, a single European honeybee, buzzes through the air just above a large field of flowers. It's flying east, brown with black bands and yellow rings, its wings beating quickly as it fights against keeping height due to tiredness. Its destination? The small town of Galefrisk, has to go unnoticed by enemy warplanes that fly overhead, but large enough to be the hive of activity that is military operations in the area. The day is sunny with a cool breeze wafting in from the west, bringing the distinct and familiar smell of smoke and death. But in the west, towards the front where the trenches are that have hardly moved in years, where countless lives have been lost, dank skies and smoky air. Every now and then the wind catches smells of flowers and freshly cut grass. Within the town itself, the smells of fresh bread and cooking in the morning. Okay, so travelling down a cobblestone road through one of the narrow streets is a middle-aged man heading towards a nondescript house. Next to him is a line of thin troops, fresh, almost out of the academy, heading towards the front, marching in unison. He walks past fruit markets and stalls, Some selling fresh fruit and vegetables, others not so fresh. He passes underneath a rope across the small alleyway that's filled with clothes hanging out to dry for the day. And he enters the destination, the building where he is to meet his sergeant.
He walks very formally, very uptight. He has slick black hair, glasses. He wears a vest, and he would be in his uniform.
And the building itself is more of an office space with a man that's lived well beyond his years, balding. He's wearing a rumpled uniform as, in the attitude that he might not care as much about his appearance anymore. But he's the sergeant of operations for this area, even though, the war might be 50 miles away. There still needs to be, regular operations for, incursions that might happen. Also patrols, and the primary role of the medic in your case is to look after, the sick and the wounded, and also to lend aid to any civilian doctors that need assistance with what probably more the wealthier class to keep up some good relations. You might have had to do some general medical practice on the local civilian populace as well. So you've been given a slip of paper by a messenger to report to the sergeant. So he sits at a large wooden desk that's adorned with several framed photos and candlesticks. There's papers and dossiers and a couple of maps laid out on his large wooden desk. There's a Mauser leaning up against the wall behind him. Smoke wafts up from an ashtray as he picks up a half cigarette and sucks long and hard, taps the ash into the ashtray. And he's looking down at what appears a dossier on the table through thick lens glasses. And as you enter, he looks over his glasses at you, and the wooden chair that he sits in creaks as he shifts his weight. You took your time, cadet.
Well, I still had my other practices.
Well, when I summon you, I expect you here within minutes. Not said 30 minutes that it has taken you to get here.
Well, I'm sorry for keeping you waiting.
And you shall address me as Sergeant.
Yes, Sergeant.
And have you forgotten yourself, cadet? Stand at attention when you address me.
You will stand at attention.
I swear, these things that we have to do with the civilians of making you soft. All right. I have something for you. And he closes the dossier, hands it, slides it across the table.
Peter will open it up.
And there's a few pages. The front page has underneath the image, well, the photograph that's captured this man is Lord Horst Hadentret. You're looking over the information, some of the information that's in there. Some of it's vague with ambiguities, and the sergeant starts to speak. Lord Horst Hadentret was seeking, let's say, a higher standing with our glorious leader, the Kaiser. And he promised state-of-the-art warplanes. But this was a, let's say, promise that his wealth and landholdings could not truly provide. So in an effort to fulfill his obligation to the Kaiser, he conscripted the folk of several remote villages around this area to construct a staff and hastily erect a factory facility and a work camp. To ensure that the conscripted workers cooperate with him, the misguided nobleman has been holding their children hostage at a nearby location. We have gotten word of this remote facility and do not agree with what has been going on. It is bad enough to conscript workers against their will. This might have the potential to effect a revolution against the Kaiser. But to hold children, this is unspeakable. I have been given word that someone from the local resistance was sent to investigate, but we have not heard anything. Now, we don't normally work with the resistance, but orders have come down from on high that this situation is unacceptable.
Well, what do you want me to do? This seems like a situation for the soldier.
In the dossier, you have papers for a scout to guide you, and at this moment, a shadow appears in the doorway. A small shadow and a tall shadow. Two people standing there at the doorway. The sergeant stops speaking and looks up from his table, draws on his cigarette, the chair creaks as he shifts his weight again, and he looks past the cadet. Yes, may I help you?
You are Sergeant Mueller?
Ah,
He's the one we're supposed to talk to, she says, looking up at the other figure. The girl speaking looks to be around 10. She's got long dark hair and she's wearing a blue wool coat that is a little bit too large. She is standing next to a much taller figure, who is who she just spoke to.
The taller figure is wearing a dark cloak, and he has his head looking down at the young girl. He looks to be about mid-20s. I believe it is the correct person we're supposed to talk to.
Here. And she hands out a paper to the sergeant.
and the sergeant, I'm assuming you're walking up to the table to hand it over.
Yeah. She's not just gonna stand at the door and go, "You
Here.
come take it."
Yeah.
No, she'll walk up to where he is, hold out the paper.
The sergeant looks confused and he looks down at the paper. I do not remember calling, but very well. Cadet Schmidt.
Yes?
These two will be going with you.
Is she old enough to enlist? This is kind of concerning.
She has special properties that will make her quite the asset.
Properties is not quite the correct term.
Well, no offense, you look 10.
Appearances can be deceiving. Are you to accompany us or no?
Cadet Schmidt will be leading the operation.
And what does he know of the operation?
That he did not pay his dues. Not much else.
Very well. Shall we go?
As you're flipping through the pages, looking through the dossier, you see the photo of another person who is a corporal. Ah, yes. He is your scout. You will need someone to guide you to the chateau where the children are being kept.
And where is he?
In the barracks down the road. Take the lorry outside.
Is there any other pertinent information to this mission?
Keep your eyes out for the resistance person that was sent in. This person has gone missing. As I was saying to the cadet here, we do not normally align with the resistance, but the situation has gone out of control. So I've been ordered to send at least one person to investigate and rescue these children.
And it seems you shall send for. Xander, do you have anything to add?
I think this is a good team that we've assigned for this mission.
You have assigned nothing, and that is quite the assumption.
I look forward to seeing you in action, Isa.
Hope you don't have to.
So the lorry is just outside, and it is a old lorry with a flatbed on the back that's got wooden railings to make it almost like a transport truck with wooden seats in the rear. It's got 2 seats in the cabin, and it's a stick drive vehicle.
Issa's gonna climb into the back.
Xander will get in shotgun.
And Peter will get in driver.
Doesn't take long for you to arrive at the barracks, and the barracks is almost on the outskirts of town, made up a bunch of hastily erected tents, and there's guards at the front gate. There's a wire fence that's been temporarily erected up around the area. There's probably half a dozen tents here, more or less, erected to provide temporary accommodation for troops, especially troops that are moving forward and troops that are coming back through and regrouping or being assigned to new divisions after maybe have gone through medical. And the place is relatively deserted. There's a few, half a dozen towards the rear of the barracks, in a large dirt area where they're practicing, looks like marching as someone's drilling them. And the guards take your papers and direct you to one of the tents. Within the dossier that you have is orders for Corporal Vita.
Reiter.
Correct. Vita.
Oh, Issa's going.
I will wait here while you go retrieve the scouts.
If you wish. I will follow you then, cadet.
Peter will go retrieve the scout.
The canvas tent entranceway swings open and closed in the breeze as it's not tied down.
On one of the cots is a man of about 30. He has brown hair, which is messy. He's wearing cavalry boots, clean, but worn, pants, and a shirt. Over a chair next to the cot is his coat, which has corporal bars sewn onto it, and a cloth cap is draped over the coat. He is reading and does not look up when the newcomers enter. The other members of the tent, though, cadets and privates, do show more interest.
Hello, I use the corporal.
He finishes the paragraph that he is reading and slowly peers over the top of the book. He looks at the newcomer, a doctor. Yeah? How can I help you?
Corporal Reiter, to be exact.
The doctor did not speak, yet there was a new voice. Slowly, he lowers the book and casts his eyes over the newcomer, the unknown speaker, which appeared to be a small child. He marks his book, puts it down, and slowly stands. He takes his coat and his cloth cap and slides the coat around his shoulders. He then walks over, fueled by curiosity. As he passes the privates, he reaches down and takes the cup of coffee that is sitting next to one. The private, shortly after, reaches around and can't find it. He starts looking around himself, bewildered. Would you like a gumdrop?
It reflects poorly on you to treat me as a child.
I see.
The mission's off to a great success.
And Werner turns and looks at one of the privates, who is sitting shaking slightly over on one of the cots. He has been at the front just a little bit too long. What can I do for you? And he looks Peter over. Doctor?
Well, we are being tasked with this. Retrieving children from some work.
It appears that you have found one, yeah?
Yeah, but according to her, she is no child.
And the mission is to retrieve children. I am not in need of retrieval. My mission goes along with yours for the most part.
Right. I have heard of you, but I've never met one of your order before. And what is the importance of these children?
In general, they need to be freed from a hostage situation. I am looking for one child specifically.
We are behind our own lines, so the hostage taker is who?
Can you show him the dossier?
Peter will hand it over to Werner. Ah, that one guy.
He takes the dossier and he finishes the coffee and he walks over and he puts it back next to the private, who reaches around and fills the cup and then picks it up and goes to drink it and it's empty, and then he looks really confused. Werner starts to flick through the dossier, seeing what information is there.
The information that's there is on a Lord Horst Hunnentrit. There is contracts that have been made up where Hunnentrit has made promises to the great Kaiser that he can build state-of-the-art warplanes.
This would not be common knowledge.
It is information that you need to know for this mission. Common knowledge or no.
And this lord has the children.
Correct.
What are the parameters for breaking them out? This individual, this lord, he has some importance to the government. What ramifications will there be if we kill him?
I do not know. That does not fall under the purview of my mission.
He will possibly be guarded. What are we doing with the guards?
That is not a part of my mission.
I said, isn't this a job for the soldiers? He said, no.
This dossier does not say where we are going.
We were informed that you would be the guide. Doctor, you say you don't know where we're going, but the map is folded up in your top pocket.
He will take the map out. He will hand it to Werner.
You don't remember even putting it in there.
He's not going to question.
Apis mellifera, a European honeybee, buzzing through the air above the cobbled streets of the town of Guildfursk. The wall 50 miles away, just over the front on the horizon, it struggles to stay above the ground. As it's tired, it runs into a clothes sheet hanging from the line above a small building. As it slides down, it flies unnoticed into a room with a man aged beyond his years sitting behind a wooden desk. The seat that he sits on creaks as he shifts his weight. A small child and a tall man standing in the doorway, and a middle-aged doctor standing in the middle of the room just in front of the desk. The sergeant slides open a worn and dusty map across the table and points to a location not far from the front. So, this is a routine courier mission. If you can get the children, bring them back to a neighboring town of Deck, at a place called Zishfine. Zishfine is just 20 miles from the front. It is an alehouse that serves as the front for the local arm of the resistance fighters. The leader name is Darks, and he points and he shows, and that's the map that's in the maps. Well, the X marks the spot of the chateau, which is off not a main road, but it is a side main road. Over here, he points to number 7. There's a guard post here, and he points over to number 2. Here on the map is a gully that has a creek. Over here, across this way, looking towards the west from this position at 1 is rolling hills, and then the chateau is surrounded by thick tall pine trees. And then that's memory sort of fades, but touching that bit of paper sort of brought back that memory for you. For the other two, that was part of the interactions that you had before. And the sergeant folds up the map and hands it to you as you slip it into your top pocket.
So Werner notices a sort of wistful look on the doctor's face for a couple of seconds, and he takes the map. And he looks like he's going to say something, and then he changes his mind, and he turns around. "Private, come here!" And one of the privates jumps up and comes over and says, "Turn around." And he puts on his back a little and leans him over a little and opens the map and leans it against him and starts looking at the map. "I would prefer to start at the hilltop. It would give us a first-hand view of the area, yeah? But this is a difficult situation. We do not know if these men are fellow soldiers or if they are loyal to some other cause. We should avoid the guardhouse checkpoint if we could." Flips through and looks at the resistance page that was there.
It's got information on a person called Greta. Not much is known, only she's possibly in her mid-20s and has been not openly against the Kaiser, definitely open against anything that's gone against. So the information that's on Greta suggests that she's not openly against the Kaiser, so her involvement as being part of the resistance, because there's several factions. A lot of people believe in the fatherland. There's a lot of people who believe in the Kaiser, okay? But there is definitely a resistance which has been built up around, atrocities that have been caused by what is perceived to be, the military of the Kaiser. Okay, so this resistance is formed. So they're not necessarily against the military always, because some parts will, outright be offensive against the military. Some other parts will work with the military, especially if it's for, helping civilians. So not all the time. At one point, you could be fighting side by side with the resistance, which you may have done in the past. Other times, you'll be fighting against them, which you also have done in the past.
And he folds up the map, and he puts it into the dossier, and he closes the dossier, and then he smacks the private on the head very hard with the dossier, so it doesn't really hurt him, but it just goes whack. "Not a word of this to anyone." And he points to both of them. They're like, "Jawohl!" Turns around and he hands the dossier to the kid, because the doctor's...
Who will take it?
He nods and turns. He walks over to his cot and collects his ammo pouch, which he attaches to his belt, and then collects his weapons. Lastly, he picks up his steel helmet and then returns to the other two. "Then you're ready?"
I am ready. We'll have to go get the other one from outside.
Jawohl.
Alright, we are heading out to find Xander again because the corporal is ready to go.
I do not necessarily foresee much trouble on the main road until we get close. It would be better not to have to explain ourselves, yeah? The order is not always inconspicuous, and he looks at Issa.
I am entirely inconspicuous.
Looks at every soldier who can see the group, which is looking at the group, and he's like, "Yeah, very, very inconspicuous. If we stop at that checkpoint, we will have to deal with them. I would prefer not to. If we stop some ways back, and then we can make our way carefully to the hill. I am hoping with the checkpoint there that they have not got anyone stationed on the hill, and we can then decide on the approach from there."
Whatever will be most efficient.
I assume we are not walking up to the front door and knocking on it and asking for the children.
Assume not.
Then I think if we remain undetected, that would be better, yeah?
Yep.
If we could just take the children without anyone noticing, that would be ideal.
I agree. I do not think that that will be possible for many reasons.
Which is why we should have soldiers, but no.
How exactly would soldiers allow us to be more inconspicuous?
Isn't Reiter here a soldier?
I
I
am.
was under that impression.
So no worries. We have a soldier.
And a doctor. And a whatever you are, Xander.
Yes. Whatever I am.
Walks over to one of the few wooden huts, walks inside and comes back a couple of minutes later with a more area map, which he unfolds over the front of the lorry and shows the doctor. And he points to one area on it. This is where we will end up. So from here, follow this road. And he takes out a pencil and sort of draws next to it from where we are to close to it. And then he makes another mark. He's like, based on the map you have, this is the hill area, so the checkpoint will be here. So unless there's any other reason anywhere in here, any sort of circles, we should be able to stop.
With that,
So then, he hands over the map to him, folds it up so the main area is there that he needs, and hands it over, and then climbs in wherever there's room. If it's in the back, he gets in the back.
Isla will get back in the back. And she will pause and look back up at the corporal and say, "What flavor are they?"
Lime. And some lemon.
She'll hold out a hand.
And he reaches into his coat and pulls out a small paper bag and offers them to her.
She will take one.
After about an hour, you finally reach your destination. The day is bright and sunny, with a nice breeze blowing in from the west, although that breeze can drag in the smell of smoke and death. It's a welcome change to the winds that blow in from the north, bringing the cold winter that's coming.
You know you've been here too long. Then you prefer the smell of smoke and death to the bite of the cold.
And how long have you been here?
Early enough to have marched with exuberance for Kaiser and country. Long enough to understand blind nationalism leads to nothing but pain. And he will look around and then head off towards the hill. Carefully, but not trying to bring excessive attention just in case, there is anyone watching.
either will turn the ignition on and follow.
Isla will follow along.
As will Xander.
Apis mellifera, European honeybee, not buzzing in the air anymore, but rather walking around in circles, chittering around in circles on the cobbled stone roadways of Gettelfrusk, tired, confused, not knowing which direction to go to, the loud clacking of horses' hooves, and the rolling of wooden wheels as a horse and cart roll past and over the top, narrowly missing the bee as it scrambles around, trying to figure out where to go. You start cresting near the top of the hill, and below on the northern side of the hill, you see a guardhouse with a beam across the road where 2 guards are. You can see a total of 6 guards, and looks to be like 1 officer down there as well. All armed with rifles. 2 are standing at the gate, 2 are walking perimeter, and 2 are within the guardhouse with the guard officer.
That is more than I want to deal with. Let's try to avoid their attention.
What would you suggest?
Moving to the opposite side of the hill. That is also in the direction we want to go anyway.
Very well.
And as you crest the hill, a pristine spruce forest and the crisp autumn morning almost lets you forget the war and enjoy the scenery. The warm wind still blows in from the west, bringing the constant familiar smells of smoke, but now forest as well. And atop the small rise, it's surrounded by rolling pines, littering the hilly slopes before you to the west. Beyond the pines lies a barren lowland showing signs of fire, with pine saplings and patches of low scrub that dot the scorched landscape here and there. Beyond the lowlands lies a wave of thick pines, and cresting through them above, through some of the trees, you can see the obvious signs of chimney smoke and a red shingled roof. And it's probably about 1 kilometer away.
And he will kneel and, very focused, look and listen at the forest ahead, and very slowly bring the bolt up, slide it back, and slide around into the chamber.
Don't you think you're being a little presumptuous with that action?
I would rather have a round than not.
I see.
The chattering of insects and the sound of wind through the pines, and the odd, slight crack as a branch falls or a pine cone falls to the forest floor. Because the wind's coming in from the west, it's also carrying sound. And you hear the sound every now and then.
There are some dogs. I don't know where exactly. And he gets up and starts to move into the forest. Moving carefully towards, in the general direction of 3.
Issa will follow.
As will Xander.
Peter will also follow.
When we find the children, there is one in particular I need to speak to.
And why is that?
Because it is our mission?
I thought our mission was to free all of the children.
That is the overall mission. It is not our mission. It is aligned with our purpose.
When you say our, are you talking about me and you? 'Cause I don't recall having some sort of secret mission with you.
You were sent to accompany me.
Yes.
Were you not?
I was.
And who were you sent by?
Well, I was sent by the Order, of course.
Then my mission is yours.
But at least fill me in on the mission.
We are looking for one child in particular.
We at least know what the child looks like, or their name.
I know his name. He will be the only child there from the Kingdom of Lions.
Kingdom of Lions.
Have you forgotten basic geography, Xander? Call. Have you heard of it? There's there's this war going
course.
on, and
I haven't forgotten. I'm just surprised that we're rescuing one of our enemies.
enemy is subjective. This child is no enemy of mine.
I suppose that's true.
Besides, we are freeing all the children. I simply need to see this one in particular.
Is the Order planning on imprisoning the child?
The assumptions you make.
Well, what else? Does they have some sort of information that the Order needs?
I need to speak with him. We will see what happens from there.
Can't say I'm particularly fond of not knowing all of the details, but
Take that up with the Order.
suppose having the opportunity to witness. He looks you up and down. Whatever the Order sees in you in person will be worth it.
I'm more curious about what the Order sees in you.
I suppose you will find out.
We shall see.
As you move down from the rise, the sound of swift flowing water comes up from about 50 to 100 meters south of your position. You can see man-high mud banks. And in front of you, through the rolling pines, and tall, widely spaced pine trees and hilly slopes that provide some level of cover from point to point. But knowing that you're not being pursued at present, the cover that you sort of choose to guide your way through from step to step is fairly sparse, but it's enough to keep you out of sight, especially with the guard post that's up on the road. As you come to the lowlands, there's a strip that's been completely burnt out by fire in parts. The only things that are growing at this point are more or less pine saplings and patches of low scrub that seems to have been almost resurrected, maybe from recent rainfalls. Across the sapling swathe where it's been burnt out, there's a forest of thick pines.
Werner will suddenly turn and motion to the others to be quiet and to take cover. He then does so behind one of the nearer trees.
Peter will also do that.
Isa will duck behind something if it appears cover is needing to be taken.
And Xander will kind of swoop his cloak over himself and duck down.
A column of 3 military trucks travel up the roadway in a slow fashion. Looks like they're heading back east, and it's a while before the sounds of the trucks fade from earshot.
And once they're clear, he will have a look and go over the road.
The burnt out area scrunches underneath your feet, leaving black marks upon your shoes, little dust particles, charcoal waft up into the air as the breeze lifts them. And before long, after about 50 meters, you're within thick pines that are so close that movement is quite difficult.
And he'll move forward as best he can.
At times, the pines grow thick and close here, and it does hinder your pace as through several areas are thick with underbrush, having to force you to go around rather than cutting your way through. And eventually, you end up at the edge of a clearing that shows a chateau that looks like an old church with a bell tower and smoke coming from out of two chimneys that waft up and carried away by the westerly breeze. It's 2-story with white walls and a red shingled roof. It has large arched windows, and in front of the house are a huge set of double doors that are currently open and flanked by cement columns. At the front doors, there are 4 guards to either side. From within, you can't tell any movement from within, but around the outside of the building is a large wire fence, and it's topped with barbed wire. On one side of the perimeter are 2 guards with a dog that are patrolling on the western side, you can see. On the eastern side are 2 more guards patrolling. And they're patrolling in an anti-clockwise rotation. And after a while, you gauge their patrols would probably take 15 minutes to walk around the perimeter in total. It is now late morning. The only entranceway to the chateau is on the northwestern side where a gate is, and 2 guard tower flanks each side of a gateway with several guards.
I had hoped this would be easier than it appears to be.
I think I could probably get in very easily. Getting out would be the problem. Issa is attempting to observe what is happening at the chateau, perhaps a little too intently, as she does not pay attention to where she is putting her feet, and steps on a dry branch, producing a rather loud cracking sound.
Xander spins around to look at Issa.
It sort of draws the attention of one of the dogs, and it barks once. And one of the guards that has its lead, sort of pulls it and yells at it.
I thought you said you could get in there without being noticed.
I didn't say anything about not being noticed. In fact, the way that it would be easy for me to get in relies entirely on being noticed.
But we didn't decide on that.
And I didn't do that on purpose.
Does anybody hear that screaming?
I do not. What's screaming?
Sounds like there's screams coming from the chateau.
I hope that wasn't the kids.
We need to get in there fast.
Then what do you suggest?
I do not think our scout has the best experience for this.
Do not normally go into such a highly armed place. That's very well guarded. It would be better at night if we can wait.
Whoever is screaming may not be able to.
I agree. We won't do them much good if we get caught, however.
They are clearly in distress. I feel going in sooner rather than later.
I might be able to cut through the fence, but it will be loud.
In daylight, there is no way we can get through any of these areas without being seen. There's 2 guard towers and dogs.
Oh, even at night it will still be loud.
I do not see how I can be of much assistance unless you wish me to enter or wander in and confuse them.
I could maybe take them out one at a time.
It will not be possible. As soon as one falls, if they are together, the other will not notice this. And there is the sniper.
True. So you suggest we wait then?
Not necessarily happy about it, but the cover of darkness. Do not get me wrong, I am not happy with it, but if we go barreling in there and get caught, we won't be able to help any of those children.
Scheiße. Alright. I vote that we take our chances in the dark.
I was not aware we had put it to a vote.
I just saw a child, top left window.
I will look.
Issa will also look.
There is no child there. But the curtains were moving slightly.
Interesting.
You are correct, and you did see a child. We at least know where they're being held.
Well, where one of them is.
The Carbon Grey role-playing game is published by Magnetic Press, starring SPG as Peter, Shadow as Xander, Ghost as Werner, Emily as Issa, and Raveninsane as the storyteller. Sounds and music are from Sirenscape and Epidemic Sound. Thanks very much for listening.